This conversation is going to be really insightful, hopefully really encouraging. We want to stir up some activists in here as well. And I've had a little chat with this incredible man backstage. He is ready to free the realness. I can tell you that for free. So we are going to welcome to the stage the incredible professional footballer, Anton Ferdinand. And it will be moderated by a good friend of mine and the man behind Cheeky Sport, Mr. Joel Bayer. Please welcome him to the stage.
How's everyone doing? You guys okay? Can we have a little bit more energy than that? How are you guys doing? You doing okay? Good, good, good. You guys are aspiring leaders, professionals. You need to have that belief in yourself, and you all look very, very good. I got here my friend, Mr. Anton Ferdinand. It's actually a privilege to be here at the Black Tech Fest speaking to him because he's generally my friend. And I know bits and bobs about his career. We have personal chats, but sometimes I think it's still the most interesting story. Thank you very much, bro. And I want you guys to experience it and understand what he's been through, what it's taken for him to become a professional footballer, some of the adversities. And we want you guys to take it and be able to, what did you say earlier on about transferable skills? Yeah, I think, hello? Can we have Anton's mic on, please?
Hello. I think for me, now that I've retired, a lot of the skills that I learnt playing football, I've used them coming into the business side of stuff, you know, after retirement. I call them transferable skills. And just like today, I'm standing behind the set there and getting ready to come on this stage. Do I get nervous? Of course I do. But I treat it like I was when I was in the tunnel at Old Trafford or at the Emirates. I got my game face on, I'm ready to walk on stage and give people what they need.
My guy. For those who might not know, can you please let them know the professional clubs that you played for?
I grew up at West Ham and played for West Ham United from the age of 9 to 23, and then I moved to Sunderland. Then I went to QPR. Moved from QPR, I went to Turkey for a couple of years, come back and played for Reading, Southend, and finished my career in Scotland in the Premier League with St Mirren.
Excellent stuff. Okay, so I want to start off taking it back to your earlier years. You grew up in Southeast London, Peckham, to be precise. Peckham boy, SE. You often grew up being seen as Rio Ferdinand's younger brother. How did that affect you, and how did that allow you to even make it as a footballer? Did you get the easy ins because you was his brother, or was it the complete opposite?
You saying I grew up, I still get it now. I've walked around here for the last 10 minutes. Oh, there's Rio's brother, I've heard it. So it's something that's always with me. But as a kid growing up in the shadow of Rio's brother, was it hard? Of course it was. I'm growing up in the shadow of somebody who arguably is the best defender to ever grace the Premier League. And he's mixed race. When I say black, I don't say mixed race. We identify as black. And from a place where you're told it's impossible to reach the heights that he reached. So to emulate that or to be compared to that, there was always pressure on me. But one thing about me and my family is what's said outside of our four walls of our council estate when we was younger in Peckham, we didn't care about. It's what was said on the inside of them four walls. And my mum and my dad always championed and said I was a good player in my own right. You'd be surprised to hear my dad always said I was better than him as kids. And when they spoke, that's what mattered to me. So hearing people say, oh, he'd never be as good as Rio or he's rubbish, that really bounced off of me because all I cared about was what my mum, my dad, and my big brother said.
Now, before I carry on, I just want to say, you guys, you're going to get adversity at all times. They're going to compare you to other people, in my case, other presenters. It could be other businesses. It could be the person who got a first instead of a 2-1. You definitely can't let those people win by letting their words affect you. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. But what you do, you have a responsibility where you have to, you turn that negative into positive by what, Anton?
By making sure that you are in control of your own destiny. How you work, how hard you work, and the hours that you put in determine where you go. You know, so no matter what people say, you can't do this, you can't do that. Okay, no problem. Use that as motivation to go, you know what, I'm going to show you. Because that's all that I done, really. You'll never be as good as Rio. All right, cool, I'll show you. That's how I was. And listen, I didn't reach the heights that he reached, but I sit here proud of my career and what I've done in the game, you know. And as Joe has alluded to there when talking about adversity, I used adversity that happened in my career to be able to sit up on this stage and talk in a positive manner about it, to try and help people. And if I can touch and help people through stuff that I went through, then as far as I'm concerned, I'm doing well and I'm winning.
So before you get the professional contract at West Ham, what did you go through there? Because what are parents saying to you? Because it's a real catty time. I say catty, it's really like competitive, if you guys don't know. Before you make it as a professional footballer, you know, there's only a few contracts being handed out. It's like one of those reality TV shows. You either sink or you swim. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was, as I said earlier, I'd hear parents saying, oh, he'll never be as good as Rio, he's rubbish, or going to managers and saying, oh, why isn't my son playing ahead of him? I know why he's not playing ahead of him, because he's Rio's brother, that's why. You know, and I would get a lot of it. And to be honest with you, I'm comfortable to say it. When I was at West Ham, I didn't think I was going to get a YTS, which is a scholarship now. I didn't think I was going to get it. But I now know the reason why I did get the scholarship over one of the other guys is because I was Rio's brother. The reason being, Rio went through a growth spurt at the same age that I did. And well, let me tell you, when I went through that growth spurt, I couldn't kick a ball, I was like Bambi on ice. So I never thought I was going to get an actual contract. But because they watched Rio come out of his transition of going through a growth spurt, they wanted to see me come out of it. And that's the one time where I can say, do you know what? Having Rio as my brother really helped me.
So first season, you break into West Ham. What's that like? Tell the people.
It was surreal. Everything that I had done up until that moment, I was doing, it was all based off of my upbringing in Peckham. I wasn't just playing for myself, I wasn't just playing for my family, I was playing for my community. For my friends who were better than me, but didn't get the opportunity to make it like I did. That's who I was playing for. You know, and my debut for West Ham actually wasn't pleasant. The first 2 minutes of the game, I made a mistake and I cost us a goal. And I remember Big David James, I'm just turned 18 and Big David James is in goal. And he's saying, oh, you shouldn't even be here. I won't go into what he was saying, but... Colourful
language.
Yeah, just of it. You shouldn't even be here. How are you even playing this team? Was his words towards me. And I could hear the West Ham fans behind the goal saying, oh, this ain't no Ferdinand. He's rubbish. This ain't a Ferdinand. What's this? What is this? He's got the wrong name on the back of his shirt. And I was hearing all of this. And being a West Ham fan, it was actually hard to hear. But when I was walking back into my position, I was just looking at the sky going like, right, is this what professional football's about? And I said, you know what? I've not worked this hard to foul. So I just looked at the sky and I said, you know what, Anton, it's either sink or swim time. And what are you going to do? Are you going to show you're from Peckham or are you not? Because if you show you're from Peckham, you're going to start swimming. I started to swim. I didn't make another mistake in that game. We won the game 2-1 and that was the start of my career.
So, decent first season. We spoke earlier on in the conversation and it was always, Rio this, Rio that. There's a point where you come away from that. You're seen as Anton Ferdinand. Second season at West Ham?
Yeah, after my first year in the Premier League, it was my third season actually, my first year in the Premier League and we got to the FA Cup final and lost on penalties and I missed a penalty. But after that season, people started to look at me. I'd go into a nightclub and it would be, right, there's Anton Ferdinand. It would no longer be, right, there's Rio Ferdinand's brother. Right, there's Anton Ferdinand. And I would say probably that's one of the reasons why I probably didn't play at the top, why I didn't play for England. You know, you hear Rio say I should have played for England. A lot of people say I should have played for England. But that was probably one of the reasons why I never played for England. And the reason why that is because I had achieved probably one of the biggest things that I could have achieved personally, which was to be called Anton and not Rio's brother. You know, and when I all of a sudden come out of his shadow and people going, right, there's Anton Ferdinand, I just relaxed, you know, and I was like, wow, I've done it. And I relaxed and all of a sudden the consistency in my game started to come down, whereas the season before, I was like that. I was always on the rise. And that's probably the reason why I didn't make as an England international when I should have done, really. But you live and you learn, and that's a mistake I'll never make again.
And again, I keep pulling it back to the crowd just to engage you guys. You know, you're probably going to get to a point where you're able to break through the struggle. It might be where you break through, you know, the beginning of your business or the beginning of whatever it is that you're doing. Consistency, keeping that hard work, working as if someone's chasing you is what I call it, is important. Because you were working for something at that time, right? You were trying to break away from it all, isn't it?
Yeah, I was trying to break away from it. And when I finally did, as I said, I started to relax, you know, and that's me looking at me, you know. I was always a firm believer that anything you want to do, you have to critique yourself first. You have to look at yourself first. Don't use the blame culture to go, it could be somebody else, it could be this. Look at what that person's doing. I always looked inwards. I always looked at myself, and that was probably the one time that I didn't look at myself. I just relaxed. I've done it. I'm now Anton Ferdinand, you know. But as I said, you live and you learn, and that's something that I'll never ever do again.
Now, you go on to have a fantastic career at West Ham. You also then go on to Sunderland. Amazing stuff over there. Yourself, another good friend of mine that I know now, Kieran Richardson. You guys are absolutely bossing it up there. You then go to QPR, right, afterwards. Now, good career, respectable time at QPR. You come up against one of the most difficult times in your career, which has probably, you know, shaped who you are today. You have a racism issue with John Terry. Can you give us a breakdown of what had happened during that time?
Yeah, I mean, you say one of the hardest times in my career. It was one of the hardest times in my life, on and off the pitch. But I'm sure everyone's seen what happened and what was said. I have to use the word allegedly, because he got found not guilty in the court of law. But it happened. Everyone saw what was said, and off the back of it becoming viral before the game had even finished on Twitter, because Twitter was really a new platform at that time. It was fairly new, and it'd become viral before the game had actually finished. And there's a lot of things around that time that happened that I sit back now and I think, right, why did it happen that way? You know, I wasn't alerted to the racial slur, the alleged racial slur, until I'd got into the box where my family was. You know, and we're talking, this is like 40 minutes after the game. So we're talking maybe an hour after it actually happened, and it was viral on social media. I wasn't alerted to it, and if I was alerted to it, best believe that in the tunnel after the game, my reaction would have been very, very different, you know, and different to what it was. But then I fast forward and I go upstairs and I walk into my box where my family is, and I'm walking in with a swagger, a little bop and that, and
Because you won that day, right?
yeah, we won that day, and
Chelsea.
it was subdued in my box, like it's very down in my box, and I was like, well, what's going on here? And my mum said, Anton, did JT racially abuse you? And I went, no. My wife said, you better look at this then, and handed me her brother's phone. And I watched it, and I gave it back to my wife, and I went to walk downstairs to go and address John and whoever was in the dressing room. And the only person who could have stopped me on that day was my mum, and she was there. And she shouted out, they said, Anton, come back. I know what you want to do, but you come back now. And only out of respect for my mum, I came back. If it was anybody else, I think I would have been gone. And she said, I know what you want to do, but if you do that, this will become a stereotypical black male does this, that, da, da, da. You don't need to run that narrative. And I was like, okay, mum, no problem. Then after that, it just become an absolute whirlwind of social media abuse. The media outlets controlling the narrative of how they wanted to spin it and how I was looked upon. And let's be quite frank, it was looked upon, it was in favour of him, and I was the one who grassed him up, I was the one who done this. Even though I didn't know nothing about it, I didn't want it to go to court, to public court. I just wanted the football authorities to deal with it. But the media spun it like it was me that complained about it, and I took him to court. Still to this day, people that haven't watched my documentary still come up to me. Some people come up to me and go, why did you take John Terry to court? And I'm like, pardon? Excuse me? That never happened. So that because of what the narrative of the media, I'm still subject to that type of thought process now.
And you guys have to understand that, especially at the time, even though social media was new, the media still had massive control of what's going on. And at the time, John Terry, he was, the golden boy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
He was England's blue-eyed. He was English football's blue-eyed boy.
So the difficulty is you've got someone that's standing up for something that's right, but it was, something that was done which was wrong. But it was almost as if at the time it was taboo to stand up against racism. And you guys might experience it, maybe not in the offices, where if you stand for something that's right, you become that loud person. Why are you making too much noise? Oh, here we go again. Oh, you're making, But, and then it became difficult because Anton was one of the first people to try to knock down that wall. And because of it, what were the repercussions for you in your career?
Because of the incident, I had a career. I played in the Premier League, for 10 to 11 years. Been involved in relegation battles, never to be relegated. Always found a way to get out of relegation battles. Experienced in there, close to 200 games in the Premier League, or just over 200 games, I should say, in the Premier League. And then after the incident, I played 13 more times in the Premier League. And we're talking, the court case took 10 months to conclude. So in that 10-month period, or I'd say a year because there was 2 months added onto it. So in that year, I played 13 more times in the Premier League, and that was the end of my Premier League career. I never kicked a ball in the Premier League again.
And people don't understand the effect that has on people, One of my biggest issues with football is when things are okay, it's all well and good. You're a QPR player, you're a West Ham player. But when things go bad, your race comes into it. And we're here to encourage people that, look, don't let anything stop you, man. Everyone is unique and good enough to be successful within their own right if you work hard and you deserve it. It's as simple as that. I want to ask you, when it comes to Rashford, Saka and Sancho, you saw it during the course of the Euros. Do you think they handled it well afterwards, or what do you say they did well versus what you didn't do well?
I think I know the experience of being the player who gets social media abuse, and
Still today?
Yeah, still today I get hundreds of racial abuse, whereas for many years it was tens of thousands. Around the incident, it was hundreds of thousands I was getting daily. So I've been them. And as a person who's been racially abused and been subject to social media abuse, the way that they dealt with it at the time was a way that you don't want to deal with it in that way and be silent, but that's what it does to you. It hurts deeply. That makes you not want to talk. It makes you question. But this time, which was good to see, was they had people talking for them. Whereas when it went through me, when it happened to me, people weren't willing to come forward and speak. And I think that was the biggest thing, that when this happened, it would have been nice to see them speak up for themselves at times, but I also understand the reasons why they didn't.
I was going to say, what was given to you as the advice when you went through what you went through? Were you told to keep it shut? Or?
Yeah, so I was always told be quiet because there's a court case pending and there's an FA case pending. So I was always told that to be quiet. I was always told that if you speak, it can jeopardize the case. And for those who have watched my documentary, that's probably or listened to any interviews that I've done after the documentary. That's always been my biggest thing that's hurt me, is that I went away from what I knew, which was to speak. Growing up in Peckham, you had to speak. Growing up in Peckham, you had to fight. And I went away from what I knew. And that's the biggest thing that really eats me up still to this day, that I never spoke when I should have done. I allowed the authorities to dictate, as I trusted the system, I trusted the football system, to do what was right, and that's one thing that eats me up today.
When you see the likes of Vinicius Junior, who plays for Real Madrid, and you see what's happening over there, and you see some of the stuff that happens over here still, how far are we from getting away from this, would you say?
Yeah, we're very far from where we want to be. That's not just social media abuse, that's in every sector we're talking about here. You know, I do a lot of talks at big corporations, and my first thing to them is always, why have you got me talking in here when your boardroom, the decision-making table, doesn't represent what's down here in the engine room, in the offices, you know? And there's all good and well getting me in to speak, but until up here changes, and until up here comes diverse, things down here are never going to get better. You know, and the reason why I say that, I use the FA as an example. So when these players are going through the trials and tribulations that they're going through, whether it's racial abuse, social media abuse, because there's people at the top level who, to put it quite frank, Mao, style and power, because they're up there controlling the narrative and controlling the actions, there's no one up there who knows the feeling of being racially abused. There's no one up there that knows the feeling of it. So how can you navigate and know what is the right thing to do? Especially when your ears ain't open and they don't want to hear what it is that people like myself who have been racially abused know the feeling. I can conduct it in a way where, and it doesn't have to be me. I'm not saying I'm the man for the job. I'm just saying if there is somebody at that top level who has an understanding, who knows what it feels like to be racially abused or abused on social media, they're more qualified to make sure that the actions that happen down in the engine room, in the offices or on the pitch, they're more qualified to actually deal with it and deal with it properly. Like for me, when England players got abused in Bulgaria, so I'll give you some context to it. When the England players got abused in Bulgaria, why is the onus on the players to walk off the pitch? We're competitors. We understand. We're wired differently in terms of, no, if we've always had it drummed into us, you don't show people you're hurt. You know, and if we walk off the pitch, they win. They think, oh, we've racially abused them, we do that again, and people walk off the pitch, and we win. That's how we're wired as athletes. So my thing is this, if I'm part of the decision-making table in the FA, I'm the one and I'm going to, whoever's in charge of the FA at the time, we need to go downstairs and we take the players off the pitch. And the reason being is because you can't abuse the frameworks of a company, but you can abuse individuals. So if a player comes out and goes, yeah, I don't want to go back on the pitch, best believe that player's being named for the public. Oh, so-and-so didn't want to go back on the pitch. What's happening to that individual? They're getting abused. But the FA as a whole, it might get abused, but there's no human feeling to that. So in my right mind, if the top of the table, if the top is right, they make the right decisions, which then have a positive impact on the people that matter, the people that are in the offices, the people that are on the pitch. That's the way that I see it.
Now, I'm going to be taking a couple questions shortly. Well done, by the way. That was very well said. I'm going to be taking a couple of questions shortly. I just want to ask, what are you doing then, Anton? Because this is obviously something you're very passionate about. I've seen you speak at different events. Earlier on this week, you was with Barclays. You was educating the guys over there. What are you doing these days in order to make a change?
So I'm part of a group of footballers that we've spoken with Twitter. We spoke with Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you know, and we managed to be the first group of players to speak to Twitter, California. Football been trying to speak to Twitter, California for the last 8 to 9 years. We done it in 6 months, you know, and the reason being is because we got players on there who ain't scared to speak their mind, you know, in a respectful way, you know, to speak their mind and say their truth and say it with passion. Because I'm a believer in passion. If you're not saying stuff, you're not doing stuff with passion, you're always going to fail. You might get there, but if your passion is not matching your words, you'll always start to decline at some point. So we're talking to Twitter California, but the reality of it is there going to be change? No, there isn't going to be change. And the reason why, and I'm comfortable saying it, is because the money that these companies make based on a tweet with discrimination in it is the reason why these companies will not change the way that their platforms work. You know, so my question is this. Why is it that on Twitter you can only tweet 160 characters? And if you go over the 160 characters, all of a sudden you can't physically press the tweet button. It will never go out. And how comes when I'm writing a message, how comes it can predict what I'm saying? It can predict my sentence. So if it can predict my sentence, it must understand the context that I'm tweeting in. And it must understand the context of my tweet. Yeah, that's what happens. Okay, well, how comes then you haven't got something in place that when I'm using the word black or the word monkey or I'm using the word kitchen, so to speak, when it's to do with a woman, how comes you ain't got the things in place that can identify the context of what I'm using them words in, and you should not physically be able to press that tweet button? Why is that not in place? And their answer is, oh, we've got things like that, but it needs to learn. We've got the technology, but it needs to learn. And I'm going, but you've already got the technology because it's already predicting my text message now. As I'm speaking to you, I'm writing something, and it's predicting my text message. Yeah, but to do with racism and discrimination, it needs to learn. Okay, so basically what you're telling me, you don't really want to do it. You're telling the world and you're telling the public, yes, racism and discrimination is at the top of our tree of what we want to change on our platforms. If it is, you will do it because you've got everything in place to do it. So there must be something else. And what I came to realize is when there is a tweet of discrimination on the platform, the frenzy around that tweet, different brands pay to be around that tweet because they're going to get eyes on it. So it then brings revenue into Twitter. There's a reason why the CEO was on crazy money, and a lot of it is to do with revenue from different companies. So Nike, Adidas, Reebok, they pay to be at different tiers. So say, for instance, Nike pay the most, they're tier 1. Adidas pay the second, they're tier 2. Reebok pay next, they're tier 3. Anything with over a certain amount of frenzy around that tweet, Nike are going to be there because they pay the most money. But the problem we have is when we're saying, okay, well, Nike, why don't you come and stand with us then and stop giving them money? The reason why they don't want to do it is because Adidas will go, okay, we'll take that place, and then they'll lose revenue. So everything's about money. That's what I've noticed in where I've been and who I've spoken to. So until there is a platform, and there is a platform, by the way, called We Are 8, until a platform is there to make sure that people are using social media in a positive way and using it where it can pay back into society and back into life, which is what We Are 8 do. So if you watch 2 minutes of ads on a We Are 8 platform, you personally get paid, and a charity of your preference will get paid, you know? And so this platform is about putting things back into the world, whether it's global warming, whether it's racism and discrimination, all sectors, it puts back in. Until we start to break the mold and stop going on these other social media platforms and start using a platform that is there for the people, we're going to encounter this problem time and time again.
Anton, that was very, very well said. Can you guys give Anton a massive round of applause, please?
Thank you.
You know what I like about you? You defy that whole thing when they say, oh, footballers are not smart. Bro, you're smart, bro. You smart. Listen, I want to say thank you very much to the Black Tech Fest. If I'm honest with you, we've run out of time. That's why we can't do the questions. I'm really, really sorry. But I'm sure you can ask Anton questions. He's on social media. Please make sure you follow him. Please make sure he's really interactive on there as well. And he's really, really down for the cause. I want to say thank you very much for having myself, Joel Bayer. And I look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.